In 2020, when COVID-19 hit Singapore and worldwide, live shows halted for musicians like Lou Peixin, also known as Singapore's glamour vintage Songbird. Join Miss Lou as the singer-songwriter shares her struggles with creative insecurities and finally invited God to be her co-writer and creative partner, turning this COVID pause button into a time of spiritual, musical growth and divine inspiration from the master creator himself. Well, let me introduce you a little bit.
Sure.
Peixin is also the famous Miss Lou. She is Singapore's glamour vintage Songbird. Actually, I expected her in retro style today, but
she's down a little bit.
Yeah.
More relaxed.
Yeah, she normally has a cat eye glasses and all that. So she is the glamour vintage Songbird, and you had an album that you released in 2017 that went to number 2 in Vietnam, number 4 in Singapore on the iTunes charts. Yeah. So, and that was the year that you won a competition organized by Spotify and AirAsia.
Yeah, that's right.
And you got to be mentored by
David Foster.
Wow, I saw a photo of that. I don't do Facebook, but I accidentally went to it and I saw it. Yeah. So anyway, her career as a singer has soared to great heights right now, but not without its lows, right? So maybe today you want to share with us a little bit about your journey in this profession and your faith, how it guides you along.
Yeah, that's right. So as a performer, there are a lot of public-facing things. People always think things we have highlights on social media. People see you at your best. But behind that, behind the scenes, are a lot of low moments as well. So today I'd love to share some of that. And maybe I can start right at the beginning of my upbringing and how I got to be here today. So I grew up in a family that is actually quite anti-religion. We used to, growing up, my sensing from my parents was that any sort of superstition, any sort of faith in any religion is something to be mocked and something to be laughed at. We would make jokes about Jesus, and no other religion's gods were spared as well. So growing up in that environment, I knew intellectually that, having faith is something, from my parents, there was something that was passed down, that it was something that was only for people who blindly believed. So that's what I grew up with. But I couldn't help but feel that there was something more to life. And the more I studied, actually it was studying science and the cosmos that led me to believe, how can all of this have come about without an intelligent creator? Sure, if that explains the creation, the Big Bang, sure, but how do you explain that we are still all alive here today and any minute movement from the sun is going to destroy all of us? So the more I studied science, the more I realized there must be something else out there. So with that in my heart, I thought to myself, okay, I probably have all of my life to figure out which religion is correct. It didn't start to get urgent until I met my current husband. And we were dating for 3 years, and I thought to myself, wow, this is such a great guy. But all of the previous experiences I had with Christians were always, they're very judgmental. And I often thought to myself, wow, if I were to believe in any religion, it would not be Christianity. So very unfortunate, that was my impression. So when I met him and we started going out, I thought to myself, he's a Christian, but he's so good. He's such a great guy. So surely there's something in this I might have missed. So I asked him a lot of questions like, if God is real, how come people still suffer? Why is there still pain in this world? And there were a lot of questions I launched all at him, and he didn't have the answers to. So he said, why not let's explore together? Just so happened, the year when we started dating, he was also looking for a church. He was visiting churches to find a church to settle into. So I joined him on that journey because I wanted to find out more about what made him the person that he is. And from there on, 3 years after we started dating, we started talking about, or rather I quizzed him. Okay, we've been dating for 3 years. What's going to happen from here? Are we thinking of a future together or not? And he felt very ambushed by it because he's a go with the flow kind of guy, but I'm a we need to plan kind of girl. So I said, no, we need to talk about this. And it was honestly really quite uncomfortable at times because we weren't aligned on that front. So this was the beginning of the year 2018. We couldn't have a proper conversation about our future without stonewalling and feeling really, really sad and angry all at the same time. So we decided, okay, we have time to figure this out. Why don't we just start applying for a flat first? Very Singaporean, very pragmatic.
Yeah, that's the Singaporean
BTO
way.
will take 5 to 7 years, right? It could, right? So I said, while we start that application going, we can talk about the deeper things and if we really see marriage on the cards for us. And part of that conversation, I knew deep down in my heart, if I saw a future with this man and we were going to talk about marriage, then if we weren't aligned spiritually, I knew at some point in the marriage it would not work. So even though he said it was okay at that point, I knew in my heart of hearts that I needed to put my best foot forward and find out who Jesus was, find out if the Bible is real, if it can be trusted, what Christianity is all about. So I promised myself, okay, I will do my best this year to find out all I can so I can give our marriage the best shot if we were going to step into marriage. That year, after we started balloting, we didn't get our first BTO thing, but there was an incredible opportunity that came up. The same area was announced for HDB en bloc. So we, through a very crazy and unpublicized method, we bought an old house, but not without much trouble, because both of us are self-employed. So getting a loan was incredibly difficult. We couldn't use any of our CPF at all. It was a really old flat, and we met so many obstacles along the way. So in that process, while the house thing was going on, I also started visiting church with him, and we started visiting a cell group. We signed up for the Alpha course, and that's where I got to ask a lot of the questions that I had in my heart about who God was and what the religion was about. And through that, actually, it was the community that really moved me. That there was a couple, I remember in particular, they had a 5-week-old. They were volunteering to be there every Friday night. And having a newborn is the best reason to get you out of any commitments, but they were there week after week. So I thought to myself, what is it about this faith that they are willing to set aside their Friday nights to be there with people like me who had so many questions and so much, curiosity and even some anger and frustration, and they just took all the questions with grace. And it was the people around me in that particular church, they remembered my name. The pastor, the second week I visited, he was like, "Oh, Peixin, so nice to see you again." I was like, "You are the pastor, you have hundreds of people to take care of, but you remembered my name." And it wasn't just him, it was many other people in the church as well. So that year, after we did Alpha course, just so happened right after that was pre-marriage class. Just so happened, And looking back, I know it's God's plan, but at that point I was like, wow, so soon. Right after that, how did you know that we were thinking about marriage? And it was through the pre-marriage class that I realized the beauty of God's design for marriage. And that also made me have a deeper appreciation for the institution of marriage and what it's all about. So towards the end of that year, I was sitting in the sanctuary in our church, and I wasn't even listening to the pastor because I was thinking about the crazy year that we had had. We had a lot of struggles trying to find financing for the house to make it happen. We also went through, some opposition in the family as well because I wasn't a believer. And we had to navigate a lot of changes in our lives. So from not being able to talk about marriage at the beginning of 2018, at that point, it was probably about October, I was sitting in the pews and I thought to myself, wow, everything has kind of magically landed in place. all my questions, not all were answered, but they were sufficiently answered. I found a great community that bucked the trend of all of the previous misconceptions I had about Christians being judgmental and things like that. I had been shown so many examples of people who were so different and so loving. And we also experienced provision that at the very last minute, this banker just turned up out of nowhere from like HSBC to give us like a loan that was even better than the terms of the HDB loan we were supposed to get. And it was really at the last minute. And when I told my parents it was HSBC, they were like, huh? HSBC, Hong Kong Shanghai Bank, they are very conservative. Why would they lend you this money to two freelancers to buy a really, really old flat? To them, it was like almost impossible. And we got it at the last minute. So when the dust had settled that year, I thought to myself, wow, everything happened and fell in place this year. And then that's when I heard a voice. It wasn't my own thought. I knew immediately it was God. And he asked me, what more do you need?
Wow. And you didn't ask for any more?
I did not.
this and that.
Yeah, so he brought to mind a prayer that I had prayed years ago actually, which was when I was exploring. I prayed, God, if you're real, show me who you are undeniably, in all ways, intellectually, relationally, always. Make me unable to say no.
It seems to me when I'm listening to you that God was really pacing you, you know. Even though you were already applied for HDB and all that, he was going to give it to you in your own time, but not until, I think he, in a sense, understood that you need this intellectual thing settled, and then everything after that should be experiential. And it's also beautiful that you had a misconception that Christians could be like that. And I can understand how that can happen, because there are some Christians who actually just trying really hard, and sometimes maybe in their zeal they may project the wrong thing. But the thing is, you met some beautiful Christians, and I thank you for sharing what made you uncomfortable, because I think we all learn, you know, how are we when we are in front of other people, whether it's even Christians can turn off Christians, never mind the non-believers. I'm reminded of this quote by Pastor John MacArthur. He says that you are the only Bible some unbelievers will ever read. So how we act is just so important. We don't even realize it, but literally we can make or break a faith. Yeah, so I'm so happy that you came around.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think that's a reminder for myself now on the other side now.
Yeah, absolutely.
That in my zeal, I mustn't forget how it felt like to be an unbeliever trying to find the truth. Yeah, and I think the best way is really to love them and to be there unconditionally for them. Yeah, and I think like that's really the best way. Your presence speaks a lot. Your actions speak louder than your words. And so when God had prompted me in that moment, I was really stunned, and I knew that it had come down to a decision that I had to make in that moment. I knew he had given me everything I had asked for. It's like he laid out all the cards and said, what more do you need? I show hand already. Now it's up to you to decide if you want to say yes to me. And the last thing I needed to let go of was exactly that misconception. Could I now call myself a Christian after believing for years that Christians behave this way and they believe in these things? In my heart, I knew the last thing I needed, the very last thing I was hoping for was a personal touch from God. And that came at that moment unexpectedly. And in my heart, I said yes to him. I can call myself a Christian now because I believe that you're real. And the moment I said yes to him in my heart, there was a warmth that started in my chest. It flowed out to my limbs, down to my toes, and there was also a bubbling from my stomach, almost like bubbling up for me to say like, I believe. But we were in the middle of a really quiet sermon.
Joy that just floods, right?
Yes,
wow.
It was like, you know, it's just trembling, and I just felt that joy of me saying yes to him and knowing that he's real. After searching for him for years, searching for the truth for years, I found Jesus. And it was incredible because as hard as I searched, I realized he had been pursuing me as hard as well. It's just that I had to make that decision at the crossroads when he met me. Do I want to believe and trust, put my life into his hands?
Isn't it so beautiful that you think you have to pursue God, yet we know our Father in heaven actually pursues us. The story of the father of the prodigal son, when he ran to the prodigal son, he didn't say, look what you have done, you shouldn't have done this, but he ran to it. So God really pursues us. He does not just write us off. Yeah. Do you want to talk quickly about your career?
Yeah, sure. So even though I had given my life to, at the beginning of 2018, we couldn't even have a conversation about our future, right? My husband and I. By the end of 2018, I was baptized. We were married. We got our house. We moved in, and we had 2 cats. So 2018 was the year everything changed for me, and that is where the turning point of my life began. So from that point, even though I had given my life to Christ, it wasn't until COVID and circuit breaker where God really started to do a lot of unearthing of where I had previously placed my trust and identity. So in 2020, during circuit breaker, right before that season, we had the best months in our career as musicians. So both my husband and I, we are full-time musicians. So we kind of have to rely on people giving us opportunities, right? It's not like you can will it to happen. But maybe mistakenly, we had kind of believed, I can only speak for myself, maybe I had believed that it was my own strength and my own talents that got me, a lot of people wanting me to perform at shows, that my income was no issue. But COVID changed everything. It was 100 to 0 overnight. Not only that, we had to refund deposits. So it was negative. 100 to negative. And from that point on, I really struggled internally because from so much activity to no activity, and if I call myself a singer and a songwriter, these two are active verbs, right? Even though they are nouns. And I was sitting in my room one day. I had a little Casio rickety keyboard and with like a blue light screen, and I was trying to write from morning to night with no inspiration whatsoever. And I felt really dejected because I had set myself a target. I said, okay, now that I have no gigs and we can't go out, I better come out of this circuit breaker with 100 songs. I better write and write and write. But I found myself unable to write that day, and it was probably the lowest point in my career, I feel, in my life. And I felt like a failure in all ways. How can you call yourself a singer and songwriter if you can't even write a song or sing anything at this point? So as the sun was going down, I was like really upset sitting in front of my keyboard, and I suddenly felt God ask me again. He asks a lot of questions. He speaks to me in questions. And he asked me, why have you not given this to me? And it was only in that moment that I realized that I had been attributing a lot of success to myself, that I was priding myself in my own achievements, when actually COVID showed me overnight that I can be as talented or I can be as garang as I want to be, but that doesn't guarantee that you'll get income, that doesn't guarantee that you'll get jobs, and that everything can be taken away overnight as well. So I realized I had a big blind spot, that I had put my trust actually in the income, in the gigs, and in my gift, rather than the gift giver, which is God. And so at that point, I just repented, and I just apologized to God and said, like, I'm sorry I've done this on my own strength. And from now on, God, I invite you to be my co-writer forevermore. So whenever I write music and you see my name in the credits, you can see a invisible parenthesis, the Holy Spirit next to it. Because without God, I would not have my gifts, I would not have a ear for music, I would not have a singing voice, and I would not also have the resources around me to continue sustaining this career. So the fact that we came out of COVID and we can still call ourselves full-time musicians is a miracle in itself, because a lot of our friends really had to pivot. And we pivoted as well to other creative parts, but we still managed to keep music intact and at the core of it. So we're very thankful to God for that, and we know it's only by His grace that is possible. Yeah.
Right. So that breakthrough, in a sense, came when you finally surrendered.
Yes.
Yeah, I
that's
think
right.
it's really a wonderful thing, right? Because many of us, especially strong women and strong men, we tend to want to do things on our own steam. But when we finally surrender, the way things just suddenly swing in the right action and things fall into the right place it can only be experienced. We can share, but I think you have to experience yourself to know that it's a divine unseen hand. And to surrender like that, actually sometimes I think non-Christians may think that we are copying out, we say, oh, leave it to God, or we pray about it. Actually, this we pray about it or we're leaving it to God is very powerful, because we're leaving it to a divine power, much, much more powerful, and the resources are much bigger than ours. So we're not copying out. We're not checking our brains at the door. In fact, by the time we surrender, quite often we've done our best, we just let God do the rest. So I guess that was your breakthrough moment too, yeah.
Definitely.
Would you like to share that beautiful song that you talked about?
Exactly. So the moment I surrendered my gifts and my career and my reputation to God that night, outflowed this song. So I've been trying to write all day, and it didn't happen. But the moment I surrendered, like you said, we feel like we want to take control, but when we cede control to God, He has so much more. He is the creator. He's the origin of all creativity.
Exactly, His resources.
Yeah. And He just flowed through me to write this. And I can't play it on piano because I'm not that strong as a pianist, so I can't replicate it again. So I'll leave it in the good hands of the band to play this song for me. So this song is called Into the Blue, and it was partially because of that, the rickety old Casio backlight that was blue, but also it talks about inviting God into the parts of your life that are unknown, like the big blue ocean, and the parts that are scary, that we fear, and the parts that also are dead, that need revival. So I pray that this song blesses you, and it was a gift that God gave me that I'm sharing with you this afternoon. So I hope that you'll enjoy it. Into the Blue.
Looking for words to say. I've been broken, praying for wisdom to guide my So take these fingers and blow through and breathe life into the blue, into the blue, into the blue, yeah. It feels like I've been here many times before, living life my way and falling to the floor. And now I'm on my knees and at your door. was lost, now I'm found. I got my feet on solid ground. I was lost, now I'm found. I got my feet on solid ground. I was lost, now I'm found. I got my feet on solid ground. I was lost, now I'm found. I am found. I was lost, but now I'm found. I was lost, but now I'm found. I was lost, but now I'm found. 'Cause I would pen to paper and I would love the Spirit and lead this composition, complete this song. Although I don't have the knowledge that you do, so take these fingers and blow through and breathe life into the blue, into the blue, yeah, into the Thank you so much. Into the blue.